biggest story the world has ever known. The rise and rise of Bitcoin. 2022.
A single chance for the world, a single moment in time. Bankers captures all cryptocurrency flies.
I never knew the story of how did you get in Bitcoin Cash.
Yes, so, the first time I ever heard about Bitcoin was when I was 17. I think it was probably 17, or maybe I just turned 18. I think I was probably 17, but I was at my friend's place, and he was my really good friend at the time, and he and I were very, libertarian's not the word, because I don't know that we had that philosophy or anything explicitly, like I didn't know that even libertarianism was a thing, but we were a bit wild, maybe you could say, especially for the Australian context, and rather unprompted too. It's not that I have, parents or a family influence or anything that I can point to. It's just always how I'd been, and he had that same vibe, right? So we got along well, and we were upstairs at his place in his bedroom, just hanging out, chatting, and he said, "Did you hear that Bitcoin crashed?" And I said, "Why'd it crash?" And he said, "Because they shut down the Silkroad drug market that people were buying drugs on." And I said, "Let's buy some." I didn't even ask, what is Bitcoin? How does it work? Nothing like that. I just went straight to what happened and then let's get some. And the reason I did that was because I knew that if a website had been taken down, someone would make another website. So if the price of whatever this is has crashed based on that singular event, people are very prone to FUD, right? What's now called FUD, and hype and being distracted by temporary things. And so that was where I first heard about it. And then I think I was a little busy for the next couple of months, but I had it in the back of my mind, like this is definitely an opportunity. So that was in 2013. That was in June or July of 2013 when I was in Australia. And then about 2 or 3 months later, in either September or October, I think probably in September, I was in China. I was studying at the Beijing Daxue at the Peking University in Beijing. And I remember just one day I had some free time or something. I started my mind about the Bitcoin. So I went online and I looked up Bitcoin and I immediately found the white paper. And so I sat down while I was lying on my bed and I read the white paper, and I immediately thought, this is going to be the global reserve currency, exactly what I say on my show now. I didn't need to know really any more than that. From just reading the white paper, it just clicked to me that like I'd already done some computer science, I think, so that kind of helped, or I already was programming, so I was well aligned with that, and I think ideologically I already had the prerequisites. And then also I was not some big economics student, but I understood that it would be more efficient, and if it wasn't controlled by the government, you would already be at an advantage. I immediately thought, wow, this is going to change the world. And I spent the next couple of weeks just obsessively reading about it. I missed some of my classes and everything. And I called up my parents to tell them I was going to buy some, and they thought I was being scammed by some kind of online scheme, because I told them I wanted to sell my shares. I had shares in Australia in Commonwealth Bank, which is the largest bank in Australia. And because I was, I think I had just turned 18, or I was just under 18 or something like that, and they had the shares in their name because you can't buy shares when you're a kid. So I had it like done by my dad, so I had to try and convince him to let me sell the shares and have the money to put into Bitcoin. So I did manage to convince him, but I think he still thought it was a scam. He just thought I would learn a good lesson about getting scammed and losing all my money. So I got some of those funds, but at the time, buying Bitcoin was not simple. So I bought my first Bitcoin on VRWOX, the virtual, I can't even remember what the second half of it is, virtual Warcraft exchange or something, VRWOX, which was you could buy with PayPal, but you had to buy Second Life Lindens for the video game Second Life. You had to buy them and then convert that into Bitcoin. So it was an 18% markup.
Oof.
So you lost 20% immediately just by buying some.
Brutal.
But I knew, I was like, I'm going to make this back easy. No problem. So I had no doubt about putting some money in. So I did that, and then I was getting more down the rabbit hole. I read a little bit on Bitcoin Talk, but at that time, reddit.com/r/Bitcoin, the Bitcoin subreddit was already going pretty well. It had about 30 or 40,000 40,000 subscribers. So I subscribed onto that, and I also started doing a bit of trading on BTCE, which was this Bulgarian exchange, which later got shut down by the FBI. And I just played around buying and selling a few terrible coin, Litecoin and Prime Coin, Feather Coin, and using it a little bit. And yeah, I guess that's the story.
What year was that?
So that was in the second half, like the latter third of 2013, and I was following it. Well, that was when the bull run started, right? So it went from about $300 to $1,200 on Mt. Gox, and then Mt. Gox subsequently blew up, and I was in my room at the time. I was spending so much time in my room just reading about Bitcoin and stuff. I went to some classes when I had to, and I was living in the nightlife area, so I also went out, had a lot of fun. It was this kind of crazy, life that I had at the time. And the Mt. Gox just kicked off, and I remember I was online at the time when Mt. Gox, they shut off the site once everything blew up. And I had the site open, and you control refresh, and the site just went blank to white. He didn't turn off the servers and get 404, there is no page, nothing like that. He just deleted all the content on the page, so you could still get the domain name, but you couldn't do anything. You couldn't sign, you couldn't log in, and of course that was bad for the price. The price crashed, but it was fine because I had bought a little bit of Bitcoin, or really as much as I could get my hands on, which at the time I didn't have much money, so it wasn't that much, but I had bought some Bitcoin, and the week before, when the price had been hitting the new all-time highs, it was a bit of a news story. So I was at the university, and somebody said, "Oh, did you see this thing called Bitcoin just hit $1,000?" And I said, "Yeah, I have some." And they said, "Are you going to sell it?" And I said, "Yeah." They said, "Are you sell it?" And I said, "Why would I do that?" And they said, "You could make a fortune." And I thought, they don't get it. So of course I didn't sell, and of course the price then immediately crashed. So I would have, should have taken their advice in the short term, but in the long run, I knew that it would go well past $1,000.
Yeah. Did you keep holding on to it, or did you find?
Yeah.
Use it? Like, what did you know?
Well, so I was just hodling there. I did try and find ways to use it in terms of trying to get more, because this VRWOX was not going to last long and it was so expensive. So I had to try and find other ways to get Bitcoin. So I don't even remember how I met him, but there was some other guy in China who was a foreigner. He must have been, maybe he was American. And near where my place was, there was a hamburger bar type joint. It was called Steps. And so I somehow, maybe it was on like Bitcoin Talk or something, I found this guy and we met up in the bar there, and it was good because the staff all knew me, right? Because I was in there a lot buying burgers. So I thought, like, we're doing this questionable deal for like a cash trade. You need to do it somewhere where you're not going to get robbed or whatever. So I had it at this place, which was in a convenient location for me, and also that I knew that I had like a home ground advantage. I knew the staff and everything like that. So we met up there, and he came in and he sold me 1.5 Bitcoin, or 1 Bitcoin for 3,000 yuan. RMB, the Chinese yuan, and but we had to do it at the time. Obviously the wallets were like terrible and stuff like that, so I had my actual laptop there because the only light wallet that I knew about was Multibit, which is now long gone. I don't know what happened to it, but that was kind of a fun experience. And meeting him, we didn't really hit it off or anything. We didn't really become great friends or anything, but it was fun to do that in a real, we're probably not the only two people in Beijing, but certainly the only two foreigners in Beijing, and one of the first however many people in the world that were using Bitcoin. So
they treat it like a drug deal.
That's right. That was exactly how I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that Bitcoin was illegal, but it also wasn't legal. There was certainly very little clarity, so it was in the gray area.
And now you are paying for your hotel room with BCH.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
What a difference.
Yeah. So with the whole BCH thing, basically what happened was I came quite involved in it. Obviously I was involved in it, and then I went back to Australia. And while I was in Australia, I was in Canberra. It's a small place, right? Only 300,000 people. And there was not really a lot of local Bitcoin activity. There was not meetups. I was telling everyone I could about it because I was so excited about it. but people were mostly like, this guy's crazy. And unlike the, meetups and different things that there would be around the world, there just wasn't any of that in Australia. And certainly not in Canberra, but I don't think even in Sydney or anywhere else that I could feasibly sort of get to. So as time went on and I was just sort of disconnected from it, I still needed my Bitcoin fix. So I posted a lot on /r/Bitcoin, which was where all the most conversation and activity was happening. So I was actually convinced that I was on the right track because I was one of the very, very popular posters. I didn't make a lot of threads, but I responded in a lot of threads with quite detailed answers, multi-paragraph answers, and I would get upvoted to the tops of the threads. And it wasn't like I was somebody who was it was just an anonymous username, right? So I posted on our Bitcoin quite a lot in those couple of years, and then once the block size war and all the censorship and stuff started, I was right in the firing line for that. So I got banned very quickly from that discussion.
It's like a rite of passage now.
Yeah.
A lot of the Bitcoin Cash people. Have you been
Absolutely.
banned on Bitcoin yet?
Yeah, so I got banned, so I moved over to r/BTC, and it was just obvious to me that it's a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Because I started with the white paper, it's just so obvious, and I knew, that Satoshi wrote, we got to raise the block size and all that. It was just destroying. You wouldn't have been able to do that deal at the hamburger bar without raising the block. It was that obvious to me.
It's also just such a simple thing. Why would you say that would... I don't understand the argument that this ruins Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Do you want it to be inefficient?
Well,
Fee market,
they
right?
do, yeah. So I think that the real reason was just that it had to because Bitcoin was exploding at this time. It was growing, and you can still look today at the growth in active addresses. It's like a horizontal line up, horizontal.
Vertical.
Not vertical, like 45 degree. It's a sharp incline. It's just going up as time goes on, right? So it was going kind of exponential, and obviously that all needed to get clamped down. And like anything, it was decentralized. Even back then, it was very decentralized in the sense that nobody. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any Bitcoiners. I didn't know any except online maybe. So because it had to be stopped, so that became the narrative. Clearly, whoever wanted to stop it had looked very closely at where is the chink in the armor, where is the point of weakness here, and it wasn't the mining. Even at that stage, it had already gone too far. It wasn't sort of the community or the merchant adoption, some way of screwing that up, or it wasn't the drug markets, it was trying to slander all of that, but that wasn't really having much of an effect. It was just creating excitement. It was just getting publicity and getting...
Yeah, right.
So obviously...
The whole black market's wait, we can do what? We can do what with Bitcoin?
That's right, exactly. Flooding in and creating hype, and so obviously the chosen weapon was a social disinformation attack, and it was, just the block size limit was a convenient sort of shelling point to create a division over. And unfortunately, not all that many OGs, but enough kind of couple of people bought this narrative and went with it. And that's just the way it goes, is that when you're banning everyone who's in the opposition, even if it started at 90% sort of big blockers and 10% maybe small blockers, if you're just banning all the big blockers, then the new people coming in are going to fall on the small block side because they're only hearing one side of the argument or a weakened side of the other argument, because anybody who has a good argument has already been banned, which they aren't aware of. Yeah. And with the community growing so fast, they just rapidly were outnumbering the big blockers.
Yeah, anybody who knows what's up comes in and posts it, and they're like, nope, you're banned. And then anybody who doesn't know what's up comes in and asks what's up, and then they can only receive that information. So they're learning. Their mentors are just wrong.
That's right, exactly.
But it's a culture that was curated.
Yes, very heavily so. And because at the time it was so small for a dedicated adversary, it was like, now we're having this meetup, having everybody here, people are meeting face to face and developing sort of bonds of trust and stuff, so it would be harder to insert a lot of, if somebody radically changed their personality or did something completely different, that would be easier to notice.
Yeah.
But back then it was all online screen names anyway for the most part, so it was hard to know who, what to trust and who was real and who wasn't.
Coming for you, Banks. I wasn't born last night. another money ain't